Students, until now we have studied about various aspects of population. So we have studied about the population attributes, right? And also we have studied about the growth of the population and different patterns, or you can say different models of the growth of the population, right? And we also have seen mathematically how the growth of the population can be represented, right? So two different types of curves we have studied. One is logistic growth curve and other is what? So geometric growth curve. And also we have studied about the life history variations of the organisms, which directly also influences on the growth of the population. Not only the four processes such as mortality, natality, emigration and immigration, but also the other factors like you can say the variations, the life history variations also will influence on the growth of the population directly. So we have already studied the life history variations, which are mainly concerned with the mode of reproduction. So different organisms, they have adapted to different modes of reproduction according to, or you can say as per their favorable or unfavorable conditions or their immediate biotic or abiotic factors. Now, in today's video, let us study about the interactions among the populations, population interactions. See, again, I just want you to know actual meaning of population. Only then you can actually understand the meaning of the population interaction. See, population means that is actually talking about the group of one particular species. So population interactions means, so this is actually the interaction between two different species. So population of one species may be interacting with the population of other species. That is what is called as population interactions. And these population interactions are very much important because, see, there are various aspects that we come across when we actually study about ecology. So one lone species can never survive in any given habitat, right? So be it a plant, be it an animal, be it a small microorganism, maybe a macro huge animal, right? Whatever level of organism it may be, whatever kind of complexity the organism may have evolved into, but this organism can never survive on its own. Imagine there is only one species in a given area, ಒಂದೇ ಒಂದು species ಇದೆ, right? So that one species, ಒಂದೇ ಒಂದು plant ಇದೆ, plant producer ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು ಕೂಡ it will be able to produce its own food ಅಂತ ನೀವು ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಂಡು yeah, it may be possible for this one species to survive ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಬಹುದು. But again, plants also have to depend upon various other organisms. Microorganisms are required to carry out various activities in the soil. Soil fertility anna vruddhi ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, and also nitrogen fixation activity has to take place. Mineral nutrition will come because of the other organic material of different organisms decaying in the soil, right? There are various activities for any life to survive on this earth which are correlated with each other. So the meaning or the gist of telling you all this is what? Any organism it can be for that matter, any species for that matter, can never survive alone, right? It must have an interaction, may be positive or negative, right? It must be having established an interaction with other species. Only then survival of the species can be possible, or you can say mutual survival, right? So if one species is dependent on the other species, so it may be the other way also. The other species may also be dependent upon this one. So that you have learnt in the mutual beneficial relationship, symbiosis anta kaltidivi navu, right? So that is actually a kind of what is that interaction. So which also we are going to study here, mutualism anta kaliteve. So that means, so may be benefited, may not be benefited, right? So whatever the impact may be, but there must be dependency of the organisms between different species. That is what we refer to as population interactions. So organisms in the nature, as I just told you the same, I have summed up the entire thing in one sentence here. Organisms in the nature cannot survive in complete isolation without a dependency on the other species. So I hope you have understood why this statement and how can we justify this statement, right? And see, Populations of different species are in continuous interactions with each other, maybe for its beneficial, maybe for detrimental anta helidre destroying, right, or neutral. As I just told you, the different populations, if they are in interaction with each other, so because of this interaction, the two populations involved in the interaction may be benefited with each other, or maybe one may be benefited, one may be harmed, or in some cases both may be neutral. That means they are neither harmed nor benefited, or sometimes it happens like this, maybe one is benefited, one is harmed, or one is neutral, right? There are various cases we come across, especially when we talk about different types of population, different types of interactions among the populations, right? So various, see, whenever I just told you population interaction anta helid takshana, one thing that comes to my mind automatically is it is an interspecific, andre species gala madhyadalli aagta iruvanತಹ interaction idu. Interspecific interactions that arise from the interaction of the populations. See, again, it is nothing but the same. It implies the same. Population interaction anta helidru kuda ondene, interspecific interaction anta helidru kuda ondene, because population is a group of one species. When one population interacts with the other population, is also true. It also means that what? One species interacting with the other species, right? So two different species can be summarized as follows. Andre, the population interaction or interspecific interaction of two different species can be of different types, and it can be summarized as, I am going to show you the tabular column now, where we are using certain signs here. Plus sign anna use madidre, the plus sign it actually denotes that the organisms are getting benefited. Okay, if species A mattu species B, they are involved in the interaction, then if plus mark is there, then that particular species is benefited. Minus idre, it is detrimental, that is it is having a harmful effect. Zero idre, that is actually a neutral effect. See, look at this chart, the name of the interaction. So these are the different types of interactions which we usually come across in the ecology, right? And we are considering these different types of interactions between species A and species B, right? So mutualism, we are going to talk about almost all of these in detail, but for now, sadyake ನೀವು ಏನು ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀರಿ, species A ಮತ್ತು species B, when they are involved in these different kinds of interaction, how they are responding, or how they are benefited or harmed, or maybe they remain neutral. So what exactly is the impact on the organism anta ನಾವು ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. So mutualism means two different species which are involved in this both get benefited. Species A ಮತ್ತು species B involve ಆಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ both are getting benefited because they are involved in such an interaction called mutualism. So mutually beneficial relationship is also called as symbiosis. So idಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು example, now we have already learned these examples, and of course when we again discuss in detail about mutualism, I will try to give the examples. Competition may be for different purposes. Competition for food, competition for habitat, competition for mating, competition for many other resources. Whatever kind of competition it can be. So in the case of competition, neither species A nor species B both are benefited, but both are getting harmed. Eradukku benefit agudilla, they are getting harmed, right? So in the case of competition, both are getting harmed. Minus sign denotes the detrimental effect. Then predation anta helidre, so attacking on the smaller animals. Usually the bigger animals in the forest, in the wild, they are going to feed by attacking on the other smaller animals. The one animal which is actually attacking, the big animal which actually attacks on the smaller one, that is the predator, and the smaller one which gets attacked by the predator will be called as prey, right? So in this species A, species B, so if you say predationally species A is getting benefited because of this plus mark is there, ಇದು benefited ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ species A will become what? Predator, whereas minus sign you can see this will be the prey. That means, so this species B gets killed by this predator. organism, this species feeds on this one. That is why obviously a harmful situation for species B, whereas for species A it's a beneficial situation. Then parasitism. You have heard about parasites. Parasites andre gottide nimge, organisms which live inside the body of the host or maybe on the body of the host, right? We have come across this before also. See, parasitism nalli the species A which actually lives as the parasite agi yaru irtare, that will be getting benefited, whereas the species which actually provides food and nutrition and also the place for survival or habitat for survival, that will be having a negative effect. That means a detrimental effect. So this is benefited, this is harmed. Parasitism nalli this is the one organism species A anta consider madidre, if this is the parasite, this gets benefited, whereas this the other one on which this parasite depends upon, this is called as host, that is getting harmed. Commensalism and amensalism, so both are similar things, whereas a slight difference is that in the case of commensalism, species A and species B, when they are involved, so one species gets benefited, the other remains neutral. ಎರಡೂ ಕೂಡ ಇಂಟ್ರಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಸಿಪೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ಬಟ್ one of the two species is getting benefited, whereas the other will be neither harmed nor benefited, right? So whereas in the case of amensalism, you can see one species gets a negative impact, it will be having a detrimental effect, whereas the other one remains neutral. So one common thing between the commensalism and amensalism is that one of the two species remains neutral, whereas one may be benefited as in the case of commensalism, one may be having a detrimental effect or may be harmed as in the case of amensalism, right? So, and now we can see the different types of interactions in detail.